Hi, everyone. I am Heather Wen, a retired nurse practitioner and the founder and practitioner at Arizona Healing Alternatives. I'm passionate about you knowing what your options are in Western medicine or alternative medicine, so stay tuned for this aha moment. So I hear this phrase a lot, but I have to, especially we're coming up to the holiday season. So I hear that quite frequently, but I have to. I have to do this, I have to do that. And it's interesting when we put certain phrases out there. We're going to talk about today when we put those phrases out there, it's almost goes into that phrase, almost goes into issues with boundaries, whether you have them, whether you don't have them. So, we're going to talk about that so you can make this holiday season the best one ever. Okay, so this is such an important issue when it comes even to your health, whether it's physical, emotional, spiritual health, mental health. What's so important is I hear very frequently it can be for any number of topics. It could be for doing a special way of eating. It could be you're gathering for the holidays, and as you're gathering for the holidays, but I have to make this dish, and I have to do this, and I have to do that, and I have to pick up the phone when this person calls, and I have to be there for them, and I have to do all of these things, and we can go on and on and on. I'm sure you have a million have tos for yourself as well. The interesting thing about the have tos is what I tend to do with people is I kind of break it down. And let's say, and I've done other holiday videos that you can look at, and I'll put links to them here, but let's say, as an example, the holidays. If you're the one that is hosting, that makes things a lot more difficult, and especially sometimes people come from all sorts of different family backgrounds, and some people it's fantastic in the holidays and getting together, but for other people it's a whole lot of stress. And what I tell people is, if you tend to be the one that does everything, and you tend to be the one that does those things because you figure I have to do this. Have I made that point too much already? But if I have to do this, then you have to ask yourself, what is it? Why is it that you feel that you have to do this? Well, if I don't do it, it won't get done. That's one of the things I hear. Or I have to do this because if I don't pick up the phone and I don't talk to this person, then they're going to be upset. And what's going to happen next? All right, let's go into some boundary issues. There is nothing wrong with living in, if you live your life without boundaries. I don't want to make people believe that if you don't have boundaries that that's a bad thing, because that may work for you. And for many people, they can do that without boundaries. They can be everybody's everything. They can pick up the phone at 3 o'clock in the morning. They can do all of those different things. And if that works for your particular body type, and it works for you where it doesn't completely drain out your energy and it actually energizes you and it makes you feel good about yourself in the world, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. For most people, what happens is without having some sort of boundaries, and sometimes they can be small boundaries and sometimes they can be big boundaries. But what I mean by small and big boundaries is if somebody can have all access to you at all times of the day, let's say you're getting ready for the holidays and at 2 o'clock in the morning, somebody wants to talk to you about picking up something in the morning, which they could talk to you about that in the morning probably. But if all of a sudden you're picking up and you're doing that, or you're saying, if I'm not there for this person, and that goes into a video called Helping and Saving, which we talked about that in a prior video. But ultimately, what happens is if you've put yourself in responsible for another person, and this is obviously different for whether it's furry pet parents or human pet parents, wait, or human parents, it's a different issue in some cases. But also, if you have an adult child, what can happen is if you don't have firm enough boundaries and you let that person where they can, in some cases, I hear this all the time, where the child may walk all over you, right? Quote unquote. But ultimately, if you don't have boundaries, it can make life very stressful. And I talk to people about this all the time. And the first question to ask yourself is, do you really have to? And then I take people through what is the worst case scenario if you don't. Okay, so if you don't, let's say it's in a case of, okay, if you've decided that instead of hosting the holiday, you are going to go to someone's house, that puts more of the control to you, because then, as my spiritual teacher put it, the door's your ally, right? So at any time you can come and then you can go, and you can say, but I have to stay, I have to clean up. Okay, the question is, ask yourself the question, do you have to? Can you be helpful in other ways? If you want to stay and you want to help clean up and you want to do the dishes, and it's not a family dynamic or a friend dynamic that's stressful to you, or one that drains your energy, then of course stay. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's using the phrase I have to that's the issue. There's nothing on the face of the earth, well, maybe, like you probably have to show up to work on time, but there are a few have tos. But you don't even really have to show up to work on time if you still want the job. If you don't want the job, then you really don't have to show up on time. So I think you're getting my point about the have tos and what we do to ourselves, and I call it shoulding all over yourself, or you should do this or you should do that. Well, ultimately, there's few things. Do you have to even take care of yourself? Do you have to get your physicals? Do you have to no, but ultimately everything in life is a choice. And so when it comes down to a choice, if you're not doing things to take care of yourself, then what may happen, it may not, because there are people who don't take care of themselves and live to be 130. Well, I'm exaggerating, but you know what I mean. Ultimately, if people don't take care of themselves, and you have a body that needs to be cared for, which most of us do, then you don't have to, but the consequences of not doing that can be possible shorter lifespan, possibly just being sick, whatever it is. Similar to at the holiday function, you may feel this pressure like you're expected to, but when it comes to boundaries, you can set a boundary. And especially during the holiday season, let's look at too, unrealistic expectation of not only yourself, but oftentimes other people. If you have unrealistic expectations of yourself, like I have to be the one that does all of these different things and all of these different aspects. And in another video I talked about, if you're the person that feels like you have to make all of the food, or you have to do this or you have to do that, then you have to look at, is that an unrealistic expectation that puts you into a series of stress versus delegating to other people? And delegating could mean they won't do it exactly how you do it, but do you have to have it your way and exactly how it has to be, or the holidays come to an end? I mean, I know I'm being dramatic, but that's what I want you to look at, is what expectations do you have for yourself, and what expectations do you have for others, including sometimes you have an expectation of the other people that are at the gathering, but you haven't expressed yourself to say what it is you want, whether it's delegating or what it is you want, and giving the other person an opportunity to accept or decline what it is you want, and looking elsewhere to get that help. So I encourage you so much to get help. The other boundary could be, you can tell somebody, really straightforward communication, and you can tell somebody and say, hey, I'm willing to bring this dish, but I'll be unable to stay, for the whole time, or I may be able to bring this dish, but I'm not sure how long I can stay, because that gives you more options. But you can set certain boundaries, and that's boundaries too between, I'm telling you, for myself, my boundary is, unless it is an emergency family situation, and it depends on whether somebody is saying it's an emergency and it's really not. Most of my family members know, don't bother calling me unless it's a true emergency in the middle of the night, at 3:00 in the morning, because if it's not a true emergency and you're calling me in the middle of the night, that will be, to me, in the long run, I may take you off the list that you can reach me at 3:00 in the morning. But for most people, they can't reach me because I'm sleeping. And if I don't get enough sleep, then I'm not the best person I could be as a friend. I'm not the best family member. I'm not the best practitioner. So having boundaries can provide opportunities actually for other people, so that they know what you're about. It's very clear, and it helps them understand. Now, they may not agree with you, they may be upset with you, but it's being okay being upset, because if somebody is upset with you for having boundaries, I don't care if it's a friend, family member, partner, whatever it is, then you really have to look at, does this person have my best interests at heart? Does this person really care enough about me that they care whether I have boundaries or not? Because you're not going to judge someone for not having boundaries, but ultimately for yourself, that may be an important thing for your health to have those boundaries, so people aren't waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, or you don't have to go running here, there, and everywhere. And, oh, I'm the grandparent, or I'm this person, I need to be babysitting, or I need to be doing this, or I have to do this, I have to do that. Just ask yourself, do you really have to? One. Two, if you feel like you really have to and you say, well, yes, okay, fine. Then three, look at what are the repercussions if you don't. If you don't. For example, like we talked about helping and saving, where if somebody's having a drug addiction problem or another addiction problem, and you're worried that that may have horrible impacts on their health, or they may die, or whatever, you have to look at it and say, well, if I were doing this behavior anyway, could I truly prevent that? So it's kind of walking yourself through different scenarios to see, do you really have to? All right. And so that being the case, it's just something to ask yourself, and it's not judging yourself if you feel you have to and you do something. It's looking at yourself in the long run and making yourself a priority, because if you prioritize other people but you don't prioritize yourself, then chances are you end up having all of the emotional stresses, which can lead to physical stresses on the body, which can lead to, some people, it's panic attacks and breakdowns. So it's just a little food for thought. I guess we're at the holidays. A little food for thought to think about what's important to you and who is important to have in your life. And if people are draining you like crazy, then you have to look at really holding those boundaries. And that's what I ask people to. Do you really have to? If you're having trouble setting boundaries, if you're having trouble making and expressing your needs to allow people to make a choice as to whether they want to participate or they don't, or what they want to do, and if you're really having trouble standing up for yourself and creating boundaries for yourself, I please ask you to get some help. Whether it's regular Western medicine counseling, whether it's a life coach, whether it's what I do in emotional reprogramming, whether it's hypnosis, which I also do, whatever that is to help you set boundaries if you're having problems doing so, please do that and get some help, because there's so many wonderful things out there, and there's so much help out there, whether it's in Western medicine or alternative medicine, to help you so you can decrease your stress and have a fantastic holiday season. I hope this video has been helpful to you. Please feel free to leave comments in the comments section, and I'm happy to answer your questions. I hope you all have an amazing, wonderful, as stress-free as possible, and just enjoyment during the holiday season. Take care.